How are you tackling your job search right now? Are you taking a more general approach where you apply to a large variety of jobs, some of which you have experience in and some of which you don't? Or are you taking a more surgical approach where you're really limiting the job postings that you're applying to? I'm going to talk about both of these approaches today, so stay tuned. Hi, I'm Lene Alves, president of Interview Like an Expert, where it's my mission to help people have more positive, productive, and successful job searches. So let's dig in and talk about these two very different approaches to job search. First, we'll start with the general approach. I find that a lot of people, when they find themselves out of work or when they are starting to embark on a new job search, certainly are interested in trying new things, and there's nothing wrong with that. So they are applying to a lot of different opportunities, some of which they have relevant skills and experience for, and some of which they don't. So let's talk a little bit about how this can either help you or hurt you in your job search. So if you're applying to jobs that interest you, but where on paper you really don't have the skills and experience that they are looking for as outlined in the job posting, it's unlikely that you're going to gain traction with those types of roles. When you apply to jobs that are more aligned with your experience, with your skills that you bring to the table. Now, these could be roles that have the same title that you had previously, or they could be roles that have slightly different titles. So this is why I do want to encourage you to look at a lot of roles, but I also want you to be thoughtful about which ones you apply to, because more applications doesn't necessarily mean more results. In fact, if you're applying to a lot of roles where you aren't directly qualified, where you can't demonstrate on paper that you have the relevant experience they want, you'll be frustrated. It will be difficult for you. You'll be spinning your wheels in some cases, spending a lot of time applying for jobs and not getting responses. And then that kind of has an effect of impacting our self-confidence when we feel like we're not getting results. So I believe you're much better off looking at all of the job postings, and if there are some that are a little bit of a reach for you, by all means, apply. But I don't recommend that you make it a practice to apply for anything and everything that interests you, regardless of your experience level. Now, taking a generalized approach can also be tricky because it can be very overwhelming. Once you kind of get down that rabbit hole, sometimes it's a little hard to crawl out. Every job seems like one you should apply for. So I want you to take a step back and think about what makes sense for you. Where are you going to gain the most traction based on the skills and experience that you bring to the table? Next, let's talk about this more surgical or tactical approach to job search. Now, this is one where it can be good and bad as well. So in this situation, people are focusing pretty tightly on roles that are very well aligned with what they did most recently. So if you were a marketing analyst, you're looking for marketing analyst roles. However, in today's job market, there are a lot of different titles. So you may have to, again, do a bigger job search and try and find some of those related titles that you can apply to while working within your wheelhouse of skills and experience. Now, what I sometimes find is that people who are newer to a job search and maybe have more experience, so they haven't searched for a while, their reference point is a very different job market than it is today. In the job market of years ago, you could apply to fewer jobs and expect to get some results and some responses. In today's job market, it's not quite the same. You might get lucky and have that happen, but sometimes people can be a little too limited in their search, believe it or not. I often talk to people who say, well, I'm being kind of picky about what I apply to. And for people like this, I actually often invite them to open up their search a little bit. And by this, I don't necessarily even mean applying to different title roles. I just mean applying to roles that are in your wheelhouse and just applying to more of them, because volume can help you when you're focused on roles where your skills and experience are directly related to the job at hand. So if people are limiting themselves to applying to 1 or 2 jobs a week, when there might be many more jobs on the market with that same title, I encourage people to expand, to apply to more. Let's see where you gain traction. So there can be a benefit to actually applying to a few more jobs in your wheelhouse, even if it doesn't quite look like the right fit to you. You honestly never know until you have an interview, until you start speaking with the company. The role that's advertised could be at one level, but maybe they meet you and you are a little bit of a higher level employee. They might actually change the job level because they like you as a candidate. So you honestly don't ever know what can happen. So there are two very different approaches to job search, the general approach and the more surgical approach. And there are pros and cons to both. So I want you to think about, what's your job search strategy right now? What are you doing? Are you gaining traction with what you're doing? And if not, I invite you to take a step back and think about your approach and see if you can improve it to improve your results. Thanks so much for being here today. I hope these tips have been helpful. And until next week, bye for now.